Hey, you, we have a Weird Ireland interview, and I'm a poet and I know it. No, actually, today is pretty awesome to have Brinsley McNamara, an unofficial guide to the island of Ireland, with us. Welcome to Trent Radio 92.7 FM, Brinsley McNamara from Ireland.
How are you doing, Mary? Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's great. I have been following you for some time on Instagram and
Mhm.
love Weird Ireland. And that's what we're here today to talk about is that you've actually just published a book, An Unofficial Guide to the Island, and it highlights stories from Weird Ireland, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. There's ones in there that have been in the videos before on Instagram and on TikTok, and there's ones in there that haven't been and probably never will be a video because it'd be too difficult to make a video of it.
Okay. Can we start with a question? This will explain a bit about who you are too. Is was there one specific story that you started the Weird Island TikTok and Instagram accounts with that started it all for you?
Um, I'd almost go back a little bit further. There's so where I'm from in Ireland's called Westmeath, County Westmeath. And Before I had Weird Ireland for years, I had a page called Weird Westmeath. And started back in 2020. And the first story I did on that was the it's actually in the book. It's the Beehive Mausoleum at Cooksborough outside Mullingar town. It's and I've known about that since I was a child. I've known about that more than 20 years, I say. It's uh it's a mausoleum that has three people buried in it, and it's shaped like a beehive. And it's not the size of a normal tomb, it's huge. It's I don't know meters or feet very well, so I couldn't say how big it is, but it's big. It's the size of a room basically. And it comes from a guy, Adolphus Cook, the landowner in Cooksborough back in the 19th century. He was eccentric and he was under the impression that when his dad died, his dad would be reincarnated as a bee. So he made a beehive-shaped mausoleum and buried his dad in there. In the end, when Adolphus died, he was buried in there as well, and so was his his nanny almost, like the woman that kind of raised him because he didn't have as much something like that. So that grave is still there. I saw that over 20 years ago the first time, and I've known about it for a long time. And it's a cool looking thing. It's a tremendous story, and it's where Weird West Mead started. Yeah, and it's in the book.
Wow, like yeah,
Yeah.
so I look forward to the book too
Yeah.
because Brinsley's book is actually out in Ireland right now, right? You can get it in the UK.
Yeah, you can get it in the UK and in Ireland. And if someone were to go into the UK or Irish book sites and order it from there, it will post all around the world. But one
Oh,
thing that's happened to a good few people, they've said to me is they'll go onto Amazon to buy it, and they'll go onto Amazon.com and they'll bought it and then see it says May 2025 because it's not in the US, the North American warehouses until May 2025. But if they went on to Amazon.co.uk, it's already there and it'll ship and it'll be there.
oh,
I know people in Atlanta, Georgia that have the book now. They bought it on Irish sites. Yeah.
oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's good to know. And then actually, what is your handle on is it just Weird Ireland? Uh,
It's on Instagram, it's Weird Ireland with a dot between Weird and Ireland. On TikTok, it's just Weird Ireland, one word. On YouTube, interestingly, it's Weirdly Ireland because somebody else took Weird Ireland.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so we'll be able to find Brinsley there. And then
hmm
that's a really weird story what you just said about the Beehive Mausoleum. So I've never
hmm
heard that one. And
Oh, you won't be the only one, Mary. There's a lot of I was being interviewed yesterday for one of the local papers, the Westmeath topic, and the woman that interviewed me, she's from Mullingar as well. I live in Mullingar is where I live, is where I'm from. And She asked about stories as well, and I told her that one, and she knew nothing about that either. Someone who has a big interest in history, very local history, or unusual things around Westmeath will know about that. But other than that, most people probably don't know that's there.
well, I found that from just seeing seeing some of your stories on Instagram that there's so many different things that you talk about. One was I've got some listed here that are just from the cover on the book to give people an idea. But
Mhm.
a bridge in County Mayo that plays music, a chair that can cure madness, giant monster sightings on the lakes and seas of Ireland. Like there's so many different stories, but how you walk around too, Brinsley. Like, is there one strange tale so far that you've found just by walking around? Like,
Oh, there is. I'd have to think because I use a mix of historic maps, Google Maps, recommendations, and then just so a lot of times you'll just drive around and spot something and that'll be interesting. I use that as a mix of making videos. The closest thing I can think of, and it's a bit of a joke one, in Oldcastle, County Meath, there's a I was just in Oldcastle. It's not that far from here, and it's not a castle. It's a town. I don't know. There's no castle there as far as I'm aware. The town's called Oldcastle, and there was a like this mysterious looking mark drawn into one of the walls. It was clearly meant to be there. I straight away thought it had something to do with surveying, but when I made the video, I pretended like, oh, maybe it's something to do with a secret order because I don't know exactly what it is. And I thought I made a more interesting video doing that and have everyone explain in the comments what it is. But that one I just stumbled upon. Yeah.
oh, that's so cool. And
Yeah.
what about like prominent places like Knowth and Dowth and the Hill of Tara? Like, I haven't seen you do those. Like, have I missed that, or is that in the
I
book?
no, you haven't. Well spotted. The Hilatara, some really there's a few places that very surprisingly I've never been to, and one of them is the Hilatara. I
Oh,
did mean to go there recently for a specific reason, but I haven't yet, and it's not that far away from where I am. Knowth and Dowth are part of a like overall historical complex called Brunavonia, and that includes Newgrange, but also Newgrange, Knowth, Dowth, Four Knocks. That one is part of that same complex. So I have been to Four Knocks, and I've done a video on Four Knocks. So I've been to part of that complex, but Knowth and Dowth, you can only get into them by tour, I think. Like there's different restrictions on different ones.
oh.
Whereas Four Knocks, there's a key. You just have to ring one of the neighbors, get the key off them, and bring it back when you're done. That's how you get in there. Yeah.
I
Um,
actually remember that one that
yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah. That's
yeah.
that's close to North and North. Yeah, well, pretty close.
Okay, I like I didn't know that I didn't remember that it was called Fort Knox. That's the only
No,
place I
no,
ever like the American Fort Knox is where all the gold was, but
it's called Four Knocks.
oh,
But I do,
Fort Knox. Oh, that's
but I
hilarious.
do, but I do make the joke, the Fort Knox joke in the video because it does sound way too similar. Yeah,
Okay. No, because I remember about the key. Like that's what I love about your videos is that it like that is weird because you're not going to see that anywhere else in the world, I don't think.
yeah. No, it's different. Of those four complexes, that one's the only one where you just go ask someone for the key and they'll give it to you, and you can look around as much as you want.
Well, I didn't realize you've been doing this since 2020, really, then, right? And like, are there main recurring themes that you see, like nature and religion or the supernatural? Like, what are the most that you see? Like, is it you go out looking for them or they just find you?
What's the most common type of video
Yeah,
or
like what kind of
I mean, it's changed over time, but I just like church ruins and abandoned graveyards and abandoned castles so much that it was easier to make stuff about that, but those aren't always that interesting. So I will say cures of places, like a place that
oh,
you can get a cure, those are very, very popular. Those are very
what are those like holy wells or
Some of them are
only?
holy wells, not all of them are holy wells, but a lot of them are holy wells, not all of them are holy wells. Saint Fa Folly as well in County Roscommon. That's a cure for I think breathing diseases. That's I've done a video on that one.
Oh,
The Well of the Mad in County Kerry. Well is a misleading word for it. Really, it's a stream. That's meant to be a cure for madness. That was an extremely popular video. There's a grave in Trim, County Navan, very close to me. It's a tomb. It's a real tomb. It's a tomb of two 17th century noblemen and noblewoman. You'll find lots of rusty metal pins on it if you look at it. It's meant to be a wart cure.
oh.
And you're leaving pins, you get rid of warts, pick it up, you get warts. It's that's a cure. So those curative places are in fact, they're very popular with people, I would say.
Oh, that's so cool. So
Yeah.
what about the illustrator too that you used for your book? Was that a collaboration that like you had planned or was that just through the publisher or
I
joint?
only met him 2 days ago, 3 days. What day is it? Today's Friday. I met him on Tuesday for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, the publisher was wondering if I wanted illustrations. I was like, yeah. She was like, do you know any illustrators? I was like, no. And she was like, I know a guy. And we would have talked over Zoom and WhatsApp and that throughout the process. But I actually met him on Tuesday for the first time. Owen Whelehan is his name. And he's a great guy. I never met him before. We went for a lot of pints.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in Dublin. He's from Dublin. He lives in Dublin, and I was in Dublin doing like I was on TV and stuff like that. So I sent him a message.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Why did you like, were you surprised when you saw the illustrations? Like, were they what you expected or?
I didn't know what I expected. There's actually there's a book when I was being asked if I wanted illustrations. I pointed out. Have you ever heard of Manchan Magan, the writer, the Irish writer?
Know what name are you saying? Like Megan, like a girl's name?
No, it's his first name is an Irish language name, but it's also an extremely atypical Irish language name, and his last name is Magan. But he had a book out a few years ago called 31 words for field in Irish, and
Oh,
there's really, really good illustrations inside that book. So that's what I said to the illustrator. I'd like it to be not
oh,
Steve style, but that's what I'd like it to look like. And she went from there. I think she just knew Eoin Whelehan personally. I think they live nearby each other, so that's why I ended up with his stuff. But I'm totally happy with his stuff. Yeah.
that's beautiful, huh? And so, out of all of the places that you've been to right now, have any inspired you for places that you want to go in the future? Like you said, you haven't been to some of the main places. So,
I will say, my one thing I'm going to do this evening after this. I'm going to go through the book because I have loads of copies in the house. And I'm going to see where I've been and where I've not been. There's actually a few locations in the book that when I wrote it, I had never actually been there. But before the book came out, I managed to go there. Like Giant's Causeway is in the book. It's one of it might be the first one in the book. When I wrote that, I'd never been there, although I knew a lot about it and read and seen so many pictures, but I have been there since. But ones that I've not been to, there's a chapter in the book about the summer of 1985 in Ireland when people started seeing statues of Mary moving all over the country, and it was a really big phenomenon. That began in a town called Ballinspittle, County Cork, and there's a grotto of the statue of the Virgin Mary there, and the statue's still there. I've never seen it. I'd love to. That's one I'd like to. I'd only be there for a few minutes because there's not that much to see there, but that's one I'd love to do. Other than that, I'm moving on to kind of interviewing people about the type of knowledge they have rather than going to places. So my big
oh,
thing would be meeting up with Bigfoot finders in Ireland because they do. There's very few of them, but they do exist, and just interviewing them, going Bigfoot
and what
looking.
word are you saying? Sorry. Like you said, Bigfoot finders, it sounded like
Yeah, that's it.
big, but what's that mean? Like, I'm not sure if I'm
People
hearing the
looking,
word.
people looking for Bigfoot.
Oh, Bigfoot. You're talking about
Yeah,
Bigfoot. Okay,
yeah,
that's hilarious.
yeah.
So I didn't know you had Bigfoot over there too.
I didn't know until well, I kind of did know there is an Irish Bigfoot research organization. It's at least three guys, and they were last year doing podcasts and interviews. And I have tried to reach out to them, but I've never managed to get in touch with them. So that would be the biggest thing I'd love to do with Weird Ireland. That's my number one thing I'd love to pull off, doing some kind of Bigfoot in Ireland video
Beautiful.
because there is lore behind it, and there is a very small scene of it. Yeah,
That's so cool. And
yeah.
back to the when you were talking about the Mary statue, I do remember Derry Girls. That's my
Mm.
daughter, whose name is Tara. It's her favorite, one of her favorite
Uh-huh.
shows. But yeah, the Derry Girls had one on that. I don't know if you ever watched it. So it's
No, I haven't. And when I was going on the radio 3 days ago, one of the actors from Derry Girls was on in front of me, before me, but I haven't seen the show, so I don't know who it was.
oh well, we really
Yeah.
enjoy it over here. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's popular there, but
The
yeah.
Trailer Park Boys is very popular here. Used to
Oh,
be.
is it?
Oh, he used to be very popular here. Very, very popular. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. And when you're talking about Bigfoot and everything too, like I think about in Scotland, we had Loch Ness, and then even over here in Canada, there's stories about the water creatures. And up in Scotland, there's the one before Loch Nessie was at Lake Morar and or Loch Morar, you know.
Uh,
So what about in Ireland? Do you have the sea serpents there too, or?
Big time. There, in the book, there is a chapter about the Loch monster. But I had written and researched quite a lot more about sea creatures in Ireland for it, but we needed to keep the chapters short. But in a nutshell, the Loch is a lake in Ireland. It's a very big lake. It's between counties Westmeath, Roscommon, and Longford, so it's very close to me. And back in May 1960, there was a sighting by three priests who were fishing in a boat of a. It's not like the size of the Loch Ness monster. The Loch Ness monster is like a dinosaur. The Loch monster was about 7 feet long, I think, is what they said. Had a humped back coming out of the water and the head shaped like a horse.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. It was they only saw it for about a minute. They reported their finding to when they got to land. And this led to a genuine you could even read it in the newspapers from back then. Bit of a big hunt for the monster. There was fishermen out in boats. There was a pub somewhere there offered a reward for it. There was word about using electricity to try and smoke it out. In the end, they never got it. But there is, but if you look into that phenomenon more, there was reports of similar sightings prior to the 1960s sighting and after it. And throughout the 60s and the 50s in particular, there's a huge amount of similar sightings, in particular in Connemara. Connemara is a sort of barren looking part of Ireland in County Galway, very into the west of Ireland. And at first I didn't think much of it, but you go through all the accounts and you get real video accounts from the 60s and 50s of people who really swear they've seen something like that too,
Yeah.
and people who are out looking for it. And they actually call it, there's about three different words. Some people call it a horse fish, some people call it a horned fish, and some people call it a horse eel. There's lots of different things, but it's overall a very big eel creature with a peculiar shaped head. And there's a lot of accounts going back definitely throughout the 20th and even into the 19th century, and the lakes or the sea have seen something like this.
Well, I just read the other day that people have a theory now that the dragons of lore were actual dinosaurs, like the end of the dinosaur era kind of thing. So I thought it was kind of,
Yeah, that's a fair one. Yeah, there's dragon lore all well in a lot of the world, anyways, and
yeah.
we don't have we do have lizards in Ireland. Very few. Maybe seen a lizard once. Have I even? I don't know. But like they have
Oh, I
newts.
heard that St. Patrick got rid of all of them.
He got rid of snakes, but there is newts. There is newts. They're
That's
just
true.
really. Yeah, I just never looked for them. But there is sort of Irish dragon lore, the Feist, but that's more like whenever that's described, it's like a really big worm or a snake or something. Even though we don't have snakes, it's like a worm or a snake.
Why, what about the Giants Causeway? It always fascinated me. And actually, my brother had a band called Giants Causeway when we were
Ooh.
kids. Yeah. But what was your, like the weirdness of it that you were talking about on your videos?
Well, in my video, and it's in the book too, that one's in both. The two aspects of it. Number one is how much of a spectacle the place is. It's anyone that's listening doesn't know what it is. The Giant's Causeway is a coastal geological feature in County Antrim in Ireland, where you go to the coastline just across the water from Scotland, and you see the all the rocks are shaped like octagons. Almost all of them are octagons. Some of them are the seven-sided or six-sided ones, but almost all of them are eight-sided, column, smooth rocks. It makes a very otherworldly appearance. It's expansive enough to be surrounded by it at some point, that weird feature. And there's two stories behind the its origin. The old story is that it had to do with two giants fighting each other, one in Scotland, one in Ireland, and they started building a causeway to meet each other halfway for the brawl. Interestingly, there is an identical feature on the opposite side in Scotland. I think it's called Fingal's Cave. I've never been there, although I've seen pictures of it, and it's really, really cool looking. I don't know if it's that accessible where it is, but it's very cool looking. And the other explanation is it's a feature of volcanic activity, and it's sort of like when there's a puddle and it gets very sunny and the water dries in the puddle and then you see cracks in the mud in the puddle. It's that kind of, but on a much more geo volcanic scale. So I love the unusual otherworldly appearance of it and the explanations for it too, especially the folkloric one.
Yeah, I've got my own theories about that one, but that's for another day.
Okay.
So, like thinking about Ireland as an island, like, and you're talking about Fingal's Cave, is there lore about caves there? Because you know how they think about the pirates and the Vikings and all that, but I
Well,
don't.
one cave in particular that is also in the book, and it's also in a video. It's one of the first videos. It's called Own Gat. Do you remember that
No.
video at all? Own Gat is a cave. It's very small. It's not a sea cave. It's in a field in County Roscommon near a town called Tulsk. When you see it at first, it's a gap about not big, maybe a foot, less than a foot long, the entrance of it. So it doesn't really look like anything in the field. Um, but if you crawl into it, you'll come into a subterranean chamber that goes back about 30 meters, and has it looks about 1 or 2 stories tall when you're at the bottom of it.
Wow.
And that one is it's a natural cave. The entrance isn't all natural. Um, but the people love bringing that place up in when they talk about Samhain or Halloween in Ireland. It's meant to be one of the origin places of Samhain in Ireland, and word of it being a gate to the underworld and spirits come out at Halloween, that kind of thing with it. So that's
I
a
do
very
remember it now that you say that. Yeah,
huh? Oh, you
I
remember
do
now?
remember it
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and it was very small, the entrance.
The entrance is really small. It's tight at the beginning, but it does get very spacious. Yeah.
Well, that's
I've
great.
I was interviewing some paranormal researchers only last week, making a podcast with them, and they actually, because normally paranormal researchers go to haunted houses, old houses, and they bring all their equipment, their spirit boxes, their intuition, all that kind of thing. They did a paranormal investigation into Gat one time, which is not haunted in the most current sense of the word, but they say they found a lot of activity there.
Well, I didn't hear the word you said. Like, I was wondering if you were talking about a castle, like what
Oh no,
place?
like where they went to they went to this cave in Roscommon. They went to
Oh, the cave. Okay.
Yeah, Gat is the name of the cave.
So talking about castles too, like you've probably been to quite a few or a few. Like I have no idea. Are there like 100 castles in Ireland or thousands or?
Geez, I wonder what the number is. There's a even just in County Westmeath, there's a lot, like a dozen, a couple dozen maybe. They're in different stages of like some of them are very intact, some of them are quite intact. The most intact one would probably be Trimcastle County Meath. That's not free to get into. They filmed some of the movie Braveheart there with Mel Gibson.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's a real Norman castle. It's 800 years old. And it's huge. Other ones are in, some of them are so in such, some of them are in such disrepair. There's about one wall left of them. If you have an archway remaining, you're in a really good place because then it looks like an old structure. And some of them go back to the 12th century. Other ones are much more recent, go only to the 17th century. But in between, but including all those types, there's yeah, 1 or 2 dozen, I'd say, in Westmeath, and some of them are in very good, cool condition. On the page Weird Westmeath, I go to a lot of castles. In Weird Ireland, I don't really do it very much because there isn't anything like I guess they're so common that they're not really weird unless there's one that has a weird story. And also a lot of the time you're like trespassing getting into these because a lot of the time they're in disrepair, they're on farmers' land.
mhm.
So I try not to like, well, I don't like putting videos where I don't have permission to go into the place or the public
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah.
For the future for Weird Ireland, then on your YouTube channel, are you trying to put up every week a video about different places you're going to or? Yeah.
Well, on the YouTube channel, I put up shorts in the same way I do on Instagram and
Oh,
TikTok.
okay.
You can do that and it works effectively.
That was perfect.
And long form videos, like not the short ones, they're a totally different game because
Yeah.
phone cameras don't really cut it quite yet. You could do it a better camera, or maybe the newest iPhone does it. I'm not sure yet.
Oh,
So I haven't done those yet.
and
Yeah.
what about I know in Scotland I've heard about they called them the Merry Dancers, the Northern Lights, but like for your own personal experience, are they very often seen from where you live or?
Where I live, extremely infrequently. I've only ever seen it once. But twice this year, there was the one time I saw them was this year. In May of this year, there was a really, really, really active Northern Lights activity. Went out to the lake. I live near loads of lakes. We went out to the lake nearby. It was full of people, like people in camper vans, people putting up fires, people with tents, out there to watch the aurora borealis, and it was so, so vivid in the sky. That was in May. I did see it. It was amazing. And then only about a month ago, the same thing happened. Where I was, it wasn't that visible at all, but plenty of my relatives further, just a little bit further away, had it really crazy. But those are the only 2 times in my memory, in my lifetime, we've been able to see it here. But I think more north in Ireland, you can see it more frequently.
And why are there legends about the Aurora Borealis there, like in Ireland or?
Not that I'm aware of. Now that you say that, that is something I'm going to look into. But not that I'm aware of. It's not really where I am. It's not a frequent thing at all. Like, geez, I mean, my mom's in her 60s. I think that was the first time she saw it, and she's from here. So like,
No.
so it's
I
not, so
had
it's just not
read
a common feature. Yeah.
that they said in Scotland that they would offer gifts to the merry dancers, is what they called it. And then I think it was like an exchange. kind of thing. You'd offer a gift and you get some wisdom from them or whatever.
Cool.
I
No,
wondered
because
if there's something similar in Ireland. Yeah.
well, I have lived in Scotland, but only in Edinburgh, which is, well, very south. But there is parts of Scotland that are so north that it would probably be a lot more frequent to see it there. And in Ireland too, more north, but just not where I'm from.
Yeah.